Torrential rain pounds against her kitchen window as she watches 8 leather-clad bikers huddle under her rickety porch roof. Their massive Harleys gleam in the lightning flashes. At 67, Dorothy has seen enough trouble to last 3 lifetimes. Her hands shake as she peers through the curtains. These aren't neighborhood boys. These are grown men, big men, dangerous-looking men with tattoos covering their arms and patches on their jackets she can't quite read from inside. But something about their desperate eyes cuts through her fear. The way they're protecting the oldest one, the way they keep looking toward her door like it's their only hope. Outside, the storm is getting worse. Power lines are sparking. Trees are bending until they're ready to snap. But what Dorothy doesn't know is that the man shivering on her porch has the power to transform not just her life, but her entire neighborhood forever. Every morning brought the same impossible choice for Dorothy Washington. The alarm cuts through the darkness at 4:30 a.m. sharp. Dorothy reaches over to silence it, her arthritis making even that simple movement painful. On her nightstand sits a stack of bills with angry red stamps. Final notice. Past due. Service will be disconnected. She's been choosing between heat and groceries for 3 months now. This morning, like every morning, heat loses. Dorothy pulls on her coat in the cold apartment, the same winter coat from 1998, held together with duct tape along the seams. She checks the thermostat, 52 degrees, cold enough to see her breath but warm enough to survive another day. In the kitchen, she opens the refrigerator. 1 can of soup, a sleeve of crackers, half a gallon of milk that expires today. She closes the door without taking anything. "Save it for dinner," she whispers to herself. You've got work to get to. But first, the walk. 2 miles to the elementary school where she works as a custodian. 2 miles because the bus costs $2.50 each way, and that's $5 she can put toward her granddaughter's college fund instead. Dorothy steps outside into the pre-dawn darkness of East Cleveland. Her knees protest every step, but she hums an old gospel hymn anyway. "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine." Her voice echoes off the empty streets. She passes the corner where Malik waits for his school bus. The 15-year-old shouldn't be out this early, but his mom works the night shift at the hospital. Dorothy waves. "Morning, baby. You eat something?" Malik shrugs. "Not hungry." Dorothy knows that shrug. She's worn it herself plenty of times. Without saying another word, she pulls the crackers from her coat pocket. "Take these. A growing boy needs to eat." "Miss Dorothy, I can't take your food." "Child, I got plenty." The lie comes easy. It's the same lie she's been telling for years. The same lie that keeps the neighborhood children fed while she goes without. This is Dorothy's world, a world where she empties her emergency fund to buy school lunch credits for kids whose parents can't afford them. Where she patches bicycle tires with her own money and never asks for payment. Where she tutors homework on her front porch every evening, helping children read the books she can't afford to buy. The mason jar on her kitchen counter tells the story. Emergency fund written in her careful handwriting. Inside, $23.47 in nickels and dimes. 3 months of saving every spare penny. At the school, Dorothy unlocks the janitor's closet. Her domain. Her kingdom of mops and cleaning supplies. She's worked here for 8 years, ever since her husband passed. The pay is minimum wage, but it's steady. And steady matters when you're 67 years old and nobody wants to hire you for anything better. Principal Martinez stops by around lunchtime. "Dorothy, you're doing great work as always. The kids love you. They do love her." She knows their names, asks about their families, slips them granola bars when she thinks they're hungry. But love doesn't pay the electric bill. After school, Dorothy walks another mile to her second job. The Sunset Manor nursing home needs part-time help, and Dorothy's gentle hands are perfect for feeding residents who can't feed themselves. The work is hard, but the elderly residents remind her of her own mother. They deserve dignity. They deserve care. Mrs. Lane holds Dorothy's hand during dinner. "You're an angel, Dorothy." Dorothy smiles. "Just doing what needs doing, sweetheart." At 8 p.m., Dorothy finally heads home. Her feet are screaming. Her back aches from mopping floors and lifting residents. But she stops at the corner store anyway. "Evening, Dorothy," says Ahmed behind the counter. The usual. Just a can of soup tonight. She counts out exact change. Pennies and nickels. Ahmed pretends not to notice. Back home, Dorothy sits at her small kitchen table. 1 can of soup split between tonight and tomorrow. Crackers on the side. Tea instead of coffee because coffee costs more. On the wall hangs her most treasured possession, her late husband's flag from his military service, folded perfectly in a triangle case. Robert served 2 tours overseas before coming home to build a life with Dorothy. They never had much money, but they had each other. They had purpose. Family takes care of family, Robert used to say, and sometimes family is whoever needs you most. Dorothy lives by those words. When teenage Malik's mother got sick and couldn't work, Dorothy emptied her emergency fund to keep him in school. When Mrs. Patterson's porch steps broke, Dorothy paid for the wood and spent her weekend hammering boards. When the new immigrant family moved in next door, Dorothy helped them fill out paperwork and translate at the grocery store. The neighborhood knows Grammy Dot. They know she'll babysit for free when parents work late. They know she'll share her last can of soup if someone's hungrier than she is. They know her door is always open to anyone who needs help. Some folks say she's too trusting, too giving, but Dorothy believes what her mama taught her. If we don't take care of each other, who will? Outside, the wind is picking up. Dorothy checks the weather on her old radio, static crackling through the speaker. Severe thunderstorm warning, possible tornadoes. She double-checks her windows and says her evening prayers. Lord, keep everyone safe tonight, and if you got any miracles lying around, I could surely use one. But Dorothy Washington has no idea that her miracle is already on its way. 8 motorcycles cutting through the darkness, heading straight for her street. The storm that changed everything started with a single raindrop on Dorothy's kitchen window. October 15th, 6:47 p.m. Dorothy notices the dark clouds gathering as she walks home from Sunset Manor. Her arthritis is acting up, which always means bad weather coming. The old radio in her kitchen had mentioned storms, but the static made it hard to hear the details. She quickens her pace as much as her 67-year-old legs allow. 2 blocks to go. The first drops hit the pavement just as she reaches Maple Street. Big, heavy drops that splatter like coins on the sidewalk. Dorothy pulls her thin coat tighter. This isn't going to be a gentle autumn shower. By the time she reaches her front porch, the wind is picking up. The old oak tree in her yard creaks ominously. Dorothy fumbles with her keys, glancing at the sky. Those clouds look angry, black and swirling like they're planning something terrible. Inside, she flips on the local news. The weatherman's voice crackles through her old television. Severe thunderstorm warning in effect until midnight. Possible tornado activity. Residents should seek shelter immediately if... The power flickers. Dorothy's heart skips. She can't afford to lose power. Not with the electric bill already past due. Thunder crashes overhead, rattling every window in the house. Dorothy moves to her living room window and peers out at the street. Mrs. Patterson's porch light is swaying like a pendulum. The wind is howling now, bending the street lights at impossible angles. That's when she hears them. The rumble starts low, almost like more thunder, but thunder doesn't keep going. Thunder doesn't get louder and more rhythmic. This sound has purpose. This sound is coming her way. Dorothy presses her face to the glass. Through the rain, she sees headlights cutting through the darkness. Not car headlights. These are different. Lower. More aggressive. 8 motorcycles roar down Maple Street, their riders hunched against the sideways rain. Harley-Davidsons from the sound of them. Big bikes. Expensive bikes. Not the kind you see in this neighborhood. Dorothy's pulse quickens. She's lived in East Cleveland long enough to know that nothing good happens when strangers roll through after dark, especially strangers on motorcycles. The bikes slow as they approach her house. Dorothy's mouth goes dry. Of all the streets in Cleveland, why are they choosing hers? The lead rider points toward Dorothy's house, the only house on the block with a covered porch, the only shelter for miles that could protect 8 motorcycles from the storm. One by one, the bikes pull into her driveway. Their engines cut out, leaving only the sound of wind and rain. Dorothy watches 8 figures dismount, all wearing black leather, all soaked to the bone. She can see them clearly now under her porch light. The leader is tall with a gray beard, his leather vest dripping water. There's a younger man helping an older rider who's clearly struggling. Two others are immediately checking their bikes for damage, moving with military precision. Dorothy notices one rider limping as he climbs off his bike. Another is speaking into what looks like a walkie-talkie, coordinating something. These aren't random troublemakers. They're organized. But organized for what? The storm intensifies. A transformer explodes 2 blocks away, sending sparks into the night sky. The power in Dorothy's house flickers again, then goes out completely. Emergency sirens wail in the distance. Through her window, Dorothy sees the oldest biker stumble. He grabs his chest, his face contorting in pain. The others rush to his side, their voices urgent but too far away to hear over the wind. Dorothy's nursing training kicks in. She recognizes the signs: chest pain, pale complexion, difficulty breathing. This man is having a cardiac event. The lead rider looks desperately toward Dorothy's house. Their eyes meet through the glass. In that moment, Dorothy sees something she wasn't expecting. Not anger or menace, but desperation. Pure human desperation. A tree branch crashes onto the neighbor's car. Power lines are sparking across the street. The temperature is dropping fast, and these men are soaked through. 8 of them. Big men. Strangers. In her neighborhood after dark. Every instinct tells Dorothy to stay inside, lock the doors, wait for them to leave. But the old man isn't getting better. He's leaning heavily on the others, and they're looking around frantically. The nearest hospital is 15 minutes away on a good day. In this storm, with roads flooding and power lines down, it might as well be on the moon. Dorothy's hand hovers over her phone. Call 911. In this weather, with emergency services already stretched thin, help could be hours away. Lightning strikes the transformer at the end of the street. The entire block plunges into darkness. In that moment of brilliant white light, Dorothy sees the truth written on 8 faces. These men aren't here to cause trouble. They're in trouble. Someone's grandfather is dying on her porch, and she's the only one who can help. "Lord, help me," Dorothy whispers, reaching for her door handle. "They're somebody's sons." What happened in the next 20 minutes would test everything Dorothy believed about human nature. Dorothy throws open her front door, rain immediately soaking her face. "Y'all get in here before you catch your death!" The 8 bikers freeze. They stare at this tiny elderly woman standing in her doorway, arms spread wide like she's welcoming family instead of strangers. "Ma'am, we don't want to impose," the leader shouts over the wind. "I don't care what you look like," Dorothy shouts back. "Hypothermia don't discriminate. Get inside." The leader looks at his men, then at Dorothy's determined face. He nods once. "You heard the lady." One by one, 8 massive figures file through Dorothy's tiny doorway. Water drips from their leather jackets onto her worn carpet. The small living room suddenly feels microscopic, filled with the smell of rain and leather and desperate gratitude. Dorothy moves with practiced efficiency. She spent years caring for people at the nursing home. This is just a bigger emergency. "Tank, help me get these towels," she calls over her shoulder, not even realizing she's using their road names she's overheard. From her bedroom closet, she pulls every towel she owns. 7 towels for 8 men. She gives them her last clean sheet. "Sit anywhere you can find space," she instructs, repositioning her space heater to face the group. "We need to get you all dry before you catch pneumonia." The youngest biker, called Phoenix by the others, tries to hand her money. "Ma'am, for the trouble, put that away," Dorothy says firmly. "You think I'm running a hotel here? This is what neighbors do." But her attention quickly shifts to the oldest man they call Pops. He's sitting heavily in her recliner, his face pale and sweaty despite the cold. His breathing is shallow and rapid. Dorothy's nursing instincts take over. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Frank," he manages. "Frank Morrison." "Frank, I'm Dorothy. I work at a nursing home. I'm gonna check you over, okay?" She kneels beside the recliner, her arthritic knees protesting. Frank's pulse is rapid and irregular. His skin is clammy. Classic signs of cardiac distress. "We need to call 911, she announces. "Roads are flooded," says the leader. "Ambulance can't get through. We tried." Dorothy's mind races. Her bedroom. It's the warmest, quietest room in the house. "Help me get him to my bedroom. Carefully now." 4 bikers lift Frank like he weighs nothing, following Dorothy down the narrow hallway. They lower him onto her bed with surprising gentleness. Tank, bring my purse from the kitchen. There's aspirin in there. Dorothy is all business now. Phoenix, I need you to elevate his feet. Use those pillows. She finds her blood pressure cuff, a remnant from her nurse's aid training. Frank's readings confirm her fears. Frank, honey, when did this start? About an hour ago, he gasps. Thought it was just the cold. Dorothy administers aspirin, monitors his pulse, adjusts his position for better circulation. The other bikers watch silently, their tough exteriors cracking with obvious concern. Pop's trained most of us, one whispers to another. Taught us about honor, about riding for something bigger than ourselves. He's been riding longer than I've been alive, adds another. We don't leave anyone behind, the leader says quietly. Dorothy catches these fragments as she works. These aren't just random men thrown together. They're family, a brotherhood. Thunder crashes overhead. The storm shows no signs of stopping. Y'all must be starving, Dorothy realizes. And cold. She disappears into her kitchen, returning with her last can of soup and a sleeve of crackers. 8 hungry men staring at enough food for maybe 2 people. Dorothy heats the soup on her gas stove, the only appliance still working without power. She arranges the crackers on her good plate, the one she uses for special occasions. She makes instant coffee with bottled water, serving it in mismatched mugs. It ain't much, but it's warm. The men look at each other uncertainly. They can see this is all she has. Ma'am, we can't take your food, says Tank. Child, when's the last time any of y'all ate? Their silence answers the question. Then you eat. Period. As Dorothy serves the food, she notices something that makes her pause. Mixed among the motorcycle club patches on their leather vests are military service pins. Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, combat infantry badges. These men are veterans. The leader catches her looking. Marines mostly, some Army. We ride together to raise money for veteran causes. My husband was in the Army, Dorothy says softly. 2 tours. The room grows quiet except for the storm outside. What was his name? Asks Frank from the bedroom. Robert Washington, good man, better than I deserved. They all are, Frank says. The good ones die too young. For the next hour, Dorothy's house becomes a shelter in more ways than one. She tends to Frank, whose condition slowly stabilizes with rest and warmth. She listens to stories about grandchildren from Tank. She learns that Phoenix is actually studying to be a nurse. She discovers that the leader, who finally introduces himself as James, lost his own mother last year. She would have done exactly what you're doing, James tells Dorothy. Open her door to strangers because it was the right thing to do. The tornado sirens wail. Everyone huddles in Dorothy's narrow hallway, the safest spot in the house. Frank is stable enough to be moved, and Dorothy keeps checking his pulse throughout the ordeal. Where y'all from? Dorothy asks during a lull in the wind. All over, says James. We were heading back from a charity ride in Pittsburgh, raised money for homeless veterans. How much do you raise? The men exchange glances. A couple million, James says quietly. Dorothy's eyes widened. These aren't small-time charity riders. This is serious money for serious causes. Gradually, the wind dies down. The power flickers back on. Emergency vehicles can be heard moving through the streets again. Roads should be passable now, James announces after checking his phone. The men begin gathering their things. Frank is steady on his feet, color returning to his cheeks. Dorothy's soup and warm shelter may have saved his life. Ma'am, James says as they prepare to leave, you saved our friend tonight. Let us give you something for your kindness. But Dorothy Washington has spent her whole life taking care of people. She's never been one to accept payment for doing what's right, and she's about to prove it one more time. The leader's final gesture would plant a seed that would bloom into something extraordinary. As the bikers prepare to leave, James approaches Dorothy with obvious respect. His leather wallet is thick with cash, more cash than Dorothy has seen in years. Ma'am, you saved Frank's life tonight. Let us give you something for your kindness. Dorothy holds up her hand like a stop sign. I didn't do anything that anyone else wouldn't do. Dorothy, please. James pulls out a thick roll of bills. This isn't charity. This is gratitude. Child, if I took money for helping folks, I'd be in the wrong business. Dorothy's voice is firm but gentle. The good Lord put y'all on my porch for a reason. Wasn't so I could profit from it. Through her living room window, Dorothy notices movement. Mrs. Patterson from next door is peeking through her curtains. Other neighbors are watching too. Dorothy can see the worry in their faces, the judgment forming. 8 big men with motorcycles. In Dorothy's house. After dark. She knows what they're thinking. James persists. At least let us pay for the food, the electricity you used. Keep your money, Dorothy says, physically placing her hand over his wallet. Spend it on your families. Spend it on those homeless veterans you mentioned. Tank speaks up. Ma'am, we raised $2.3 million this weekend. We can afford to thank you properly. Dorothy's eyes widen at the figure, but her resolve doesn't waver. Then you take that money and help people who need it more than I do. The men exchange glances. They've met generous people before, but nothing like this. Dorothy Washington just fed them her last can of soup and refuses to take a penny. James tries one more approach. When Dorothy turns away, he places $500 on her kitchen table. More money than Dorothy sees in 2 months. She notices immediately. Without a word, Dorothy picks up the bills and walks to James. She places them directly in his hand and folds his fingers around them. My mama taught me that kindness ain't for sale, she says quietly. Y'all get home safe to your people. Frank, now steady on his feet, approaches Dorothy. You're an angel, Miss Dorothy. I won't forget this night. Just take care of that ticker, Dorothy replies, patting his arm. The other bikers line up to thank her personally. Each one shakes her hand. These aren't the dangerous strangers she feared 2 hours ago. These are somebody's sons, somebody's fathers. Tank pulls a small prayer card from his wallet. St. Christopher, patron saint of travelers. He presses it into Dorothy's hand, for keeping us safe. As they file out, James pauses at the door. He reaches into his vest pocket and pulls out a business card. Expensive cardstock, embossed lettering. At least take this, he insists. If you ever need anything at all, you call that number. Dorothy looks at the card. Phoenix Industries, in elegant script. A phone number she doesn't recognize. I don't need anything. Dorothy starts to protest. Promise me you'll keep it, James says, his tone serious now. Promise me. Something in his voice makes Dorothy nod. I'll keep it. Thank you, James says, for everything. Outside, Dorothy can hear the motorcycle starting up. 8 engines roar to life. She watches from her doorway as they pull out of her driveway, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Mrs. Patterson appears at her fence. Dorothy, were you all right? I saw all the motorcycles and got worried. Just some folks caught in the storm, Dorothy replies, keeping their business private. You sure they didn't take anything? These biker types can be trouble. Dorothy thinks about the money they tried to force on her, the genuine gratitude in their eyes. No trouble, Mrs. Patterson. No trouble at all. But as Dorothy closes her door, she notices the business card in her hand. She tucks it into her Bible, her most treasured possession. Tomorrow she'll go back to her normal routine. 4:30 a.m. alarm, double shifts, bills on the nightstand. But something has changed tonight. Outside, neighbors are still watching from their windows. Dorothy can feel their eyes on her house. She knows what they're thinking. She'll deal with that tomorrow. Tonight she just saved a man's life, because that's who Dorothy Washington is. Over the next few days, strange things began happening that Dorothy couldn't quite explain. Day 1 after the storm, Dorothy returns to work at the elementary school. Her supervisor, Mrs. Lane, notices something different. Dorothy, you seem more upbeat today. That gospel humming is extra cheerful. Dorothy smiles, mopping the hallway. Just grateful, I suppose. The storm could have been worse. She doesn't mention the 8 strangers who spent the night in her living room. Some things are private, but the whispers have already started. At lunch, janitor Mike pulls Dorothy aside. Hey, my neighbor on Maple Street said she saw motorcycles at your place during the storm. Is everything okay? Dorothy keeps mopping. Just folks caught in bad weather. 8 motorcycles, Dorothy. That's a lot of folks. She can hear the concern in his voice, the suspicion. After work, Dorothy stops at Ahmed's corner store. The conversation dies when she walks in. 3 neighborhood women turn to stare. Mrs. Rodriguez whispers something to Mrs. Johnson. Both look at Dorothy with new eyes. Evening, Dorothy, Ahmed says carefully. Heard you had some excitement during the storm. Nothing exciting about helping people, Dorothy replies, buying her usual can of soup. But she notices Ahmed counting her change twice, like he's wondering where she really got the money. That evening, Dorothy finally examines the business card properly. Phoenix Industries, in elegant script. Corporate headquarters address in a part of town she's never been to. She asks her granddaughter to look it up online. "Grandma, this is weird. The website is super basic. Just says private investment and community development. The CEO is listed as J. Phoenix, but there's no photo. What kind of business don't show their boss? The kind with serious money, Grandma. Look at this. They're involved in veteran support initiatives across 5 states. Dorothy stares at the screen. These men weren't just riding for fun, they were riding for a cause. Over the next week, strange coincidences pile up. The local veterans hospital receives an anonymous donation. The community center gets surprise funding for senior programs. The food bank finds a mysterious shipment of supplies on their loading dock. Dorothy notices more motorcycles on the roads than usual, not causing trouble, just there, like they're watching over the neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson stops by with fresh cookies and pointed questions. "Dorothy, people are talking, saying you might be mixed up with the wrong crowd." "What people?" "Church people, school people, they're worried." Dorothy sets down her tea. "Worried about what?" "About you letting strangers into your house. About what kind of people ride motorcycles in storms." "They were good people, Mrs. Patterson." "How do you know?" "Dorothy, you're too trusting. What if they come back?" That night, Dorothy lies in bed holding the business card. Part of her expects to never hear from those men again. That's how it usually goes when she helps people. They say thank you and disappear back into their lives. But something feels different this time. Something about the way James insisted she keep the card. Something about the expensive paper and the mysterious company. Dorothy tucks the card back into her Bible and says her prayers. She has no idea that 8 men in leather jackets are planning something that will change her life forever. The truth about that stormy night was about to arrive at Dorothy's front door. Day 8 after the storm, Saturday morning, October 23rd. Dorothy is tending her small garden, pulling weeds from around her tomato plants. The October sun feels good on her back. For a moment, she forgets about the whispers, the worried looks, the way conversations stop when she enters a room. Then she hears it. That rumble, deep and rhythmic. Not thunder this time, but engines, lots of them. Dorothy straightens up, her arthritic back protesting. Down the street, she sees a single motorcycle turning onto Maple Street. Then 5 more. Then 20. Then more than she can count. Her hands start shaking as motorcycles line her entire street. Neighbors peek from windows. Children point from porches. Mrs. Patterson comes out on her lawn, cell phone already in hand, probably calling the police. The sound is deafening. Then, in perfect unison, it stops. 100 bikers dismount simultaneously. Dorothy's mouth goes dry. She recognizes the 8 from that night, but now they're accompanied by an army, all wearing similar leather vests, all moving with military precision, all looking directly at her house. "Lord, what have I gotten myself into?" Dorothy whispers. Her mind races through possibilities. Revenge for something she doesn't understand. Gang business she accidentally witnessed. Maybe they think she knows something she doesn't. She considers running inside, locking the door, calling for help. But it's too late for that now. The leader from that night walks up her driveway. But now Dorothy notices details she missed before. His leather jacket isn't just any jacket. It's expensive, with official patches she can see clearly in daylight. Military bearing is more pronounced. Other bikers treated him with obvious respect. Professional bodyguards flanking him. This isn't just some motorcycle club leader. This is someone important. "Miss Dorothy," he says, his voice carrying easily across the suddenly silent street. "I need to properly introduce myself." Dorothy's neighbors are gathering now. Mrs. Patterson, Mike from across the street, the Johnson family, Malik and his mother, all watching, all waiting to see what trouble Dorothy has brought to their quiet neighborhood. "My name is James Phoenix." The name sounds familiar, but Dorothy can't place it. "Nice to meet you proper, Mr. Phoenix. You have my card, Phoenix Industries. But what you don't know is what that company really does." Dorothy glances around at her neighbors. She can see the fear in their eyes. 100 motorcycles, military precision, a leader who speaks like he's used to being obeyed. "Mr. Phoenix, I appreciate you stopping by, but Miss Dorothy," James interrupts gently. I'm not just a successful businessman. Phoenix Industries has donated over $50 million to veteran causes in the past 5 years. The crowd murmurs. $50 million? From a motorcycle club? We're not just a riding club, James continues, his voice carrying to every neighbor within earshot. We're all veterans. Marine Corps, Army, Navy, Air Force. We ride together to raise money and awareness for veteran causes. Dorothy's eyes widened. Veterans. Like her, Robert. That storm caught us returning from a 3-state charity ride that raised $2.3 million for homeless veterans. We were exhausted, soaked, and Frank was having a medical emergency when we found your porch. Mrs. Patterson lowers her phone. Malik's mother steps closer to hear better. You mean, Dorothy's voice is barely a whisper, y'all are the good guys? James smiles. Thanks to you, we're alive, guys. The revelation hits the crowd like a wave. These aren't dangerous criminals. These are heroes, veterans who ride for charity, men who serve their community, and Dorothy helped them when they needed it most. Miss Dorothy, James continues, in 30 years of military service and 15 years running Phoenix Industries, I've never encountered someone who would risk their safety, spend their last resources, and refuse payment to help complete strangers. Dorothy feels tears starting. Mr. Phoenix, I just did what anyone would do. No. James says firmly. You did what heroes do, and we've been looking for someone exactly like you. The crowd is completely silent now. Even the children have stopped moving. We've spent the past week researching you, Miss Dorothy. Your volunteer work at the community kitchen, your double jobs to support your granddaughter's education, your reputation in this neighborhood as someone who helps everyone, your financial struggles despite your generosity. Dorothy's cheeks burn with embarrassment. Her private struggles, exposed in front of everyone. We've been looking for someone to run our new community outreach center, James announces. Someone who understands what it means to serve others without expecting anything in return. The neighbors exchange glances. Community outreach center? Here? Mr. Phoenix, Dorothy stammers. I'm just a janitor and part-time nurse's aide. I don't know anything about running centers. You fed 8 strangers your last can of soup, James replies. You opened your home to people who could have been dangerous. You saved a man's life and refused payment. Miss Dorothy, you don't need to learn how to serve people. You need to learn how to let people serve you. Mrs. Patterson's hand goes to her mouth. Mrs. Johnson starts crying. These neighbors who've been whispering about Dorothy's poor judgment are suddenly seeing the truth. Dorothy Washington isn't the problem in their neighborhood. She's the solution. We want to offer you a position, James says. $75,000 a year to coordinate community programs, full health care benefits, housing allowance, and the budget to hire and train other community workers. Dorothy's knees almost give out. More money than she's ever dreamed of, to help people, to serve her community. This can't be real, she whispers. Miss Dorothy, James says, his voice carrying across the silent street. You changed our lives that night. Now we want to change yours. And through you, we want to change this whole community. What Dorothy thought was a simple act of kindness to strangers was actually rescuing some of the most powerful veteran advocates in the country. Her refusal of payment wasn't just moral, it was the exact test that proved she was the person they'd been searching for. But the job offer was just the beginning of what James Phoenix had planned. Dorothy's hesitation is written all over her face. Mr. Phoenix, this is too much. I can't accept charity. This isn't charity, Miss Dorothy, James replies, his voice carrying across the silent street. This is the smartest business decision I've ever made. Let me show you what we're really offering. James pulls out architectural blueprints from his motorcycle's saddlebag. He spreads them across Dorothy's small porch table as neighbors crane their necks to see. Community center blueprint for this neighborhood, he announces. Medical clinic with free basic services, job training programs, after-school tutoring center, senior services coordination. Dorothy's eyes widen as she studies the plans. The building is massive, professional, more resources than this neighborhood has ever seen. You wouldn't just have a job, Dorothy. You'd be the director of community impact. You'd decide how we spend our resources to help the most people. Mrs. Patterson steps closer, her earlier suspicions forgotten. Did he say free medical clinic? Yes, ma'am, James confirms. And job training programs for anyone who needs them. Other bikers step forward, removing their helmets. Suddenly they look less intimidating and more like professionals. "This is Dr. Marcus Williams," James says, introducing a tall African-American man, former Navy trauma specialist. "He'll run the medical clinic." "Tank?" Dorothy asks, recognizing him. Dr. Williams smiles. "Tank was my road name, but I've been treating veterans for 15 years. And this is Sarah Lane, former Navy logistics coordinator. She'll handle job placement and training programs." Dorothy shakes her head in amazement. "Y'all got real jobs, real careers. This is Reverend Michael Torres, chaplain and community organizer. He'll coordinate with local churches and community groups." Malik's mother speaks up from the crowd. "Reverend, you're a preacher?" Reverend Torres nods. 20 years in the Army, 10 years in ministry. We ride together because we serve together." Dorothy's questions come rapid fire. "But why me? Why this neighborhood?" "Because you prove that real change starts with real caring," James explains. "We've tried top-down programs before. They fail because they don't have heart. You have more heart than anyone we've ever met." James continues, unveiling the complete vision. "Phoenix Industries has been planning community intervention programs in underserved areas. Your neighborhood was selected after extensive research, but we needed someone local who understood the real needs. Someone who already has the community's trust," adds Dr. Williams. Dorothy looks around at her neighbors, Mrs. Patterson, who brings her cookies, Malik, who calls her Grammy Dot, Mrs. Johnson, who asks her to translate documents. These are her people. "The personal benefits are substantial," James continues. "Your granddaughter's college tuition will be fully covered, plus graduate school if she chooses. Your housing situation will be resolved immediately with a moving allowance and first year's rent paid in advance." Dorothy gasps. "My granddaughter's education? Full scholarship. We've already contacted her school." "Health insurance starts immediately," Sarah adds. "Comprehensive coverage including dental and vision. Company vehicle for community work," Reverend Torres mentions. "Can't coordinate programs if you can't get around." Dorothy's hands shake as the magnitude hits her. How much would I be managing?" $500,000 annually for community programs," James states, "plus authority to hire 12 full-time positions." The crowd murmurs, $500,000 in their neighborhood. "Construction begins in 30 days, James continues. "You'll start with 6 weeks of paid training at our headquarters. Leadership development, program management, community organization." Dorothy's voice cracks. "I've never managed more than my own checkbook." "You've been managing this entire community's well-being for years," Dr. Williams replies. "Now you'll have resources to match your heart." James addresses the growing crowd of neighbors directly. "Miss Dorothy isn't the only hero on this street. We want to hire locally, train locally, and invest locally. Anyone interested in construction jobs, administrative work, or program coordination should talk to Dorothy this week." Malik raises his hand. "Construction jobs? Real construction jobs?" 40-hour weeks, full benefits, apprenticeship programs," Sarah confirms. Suddenly, Phoenix Industries trucks appear at the end of the street. Workers begin unloading groceries, medical supplies, and legal aid materials. "Immediate assistance while we build the permanent center," James explains. "Free groceries for every household on this block. Mobile medical clinic for health screenings, legal team to help with housing issues, immigration paperwork, anything you need." Mrs. Patterson wipes her eyes. "Free groceries? For everyone?" "Everyone," Dr. Williams confirms. Dorothy's voice shakes with emotion. "I don't know what I did to deserve this blessing, but I promise y'all, every penny will go to helping folks who need it most." The crowd erupts in cheers and tears. Children are asking to touch the motorcycles. Adults are crying with joy and disbelief. James pulls out official documents. "Signing ceremony Monday morning at our headquarters. Background check formalities, though we know you'll pass with flying colors. First community meeting scheduled for next week," Sarah adds, "to hear what programs you want most. Training starts the following Monday," Reverend Torres concludes. James hands Dorothy keys to a reliable Honda Civic. "You can't coordinate community programs if you can't get around the community." Dorothy stares at the keys, her first car in 5 years. Frank, the older biker whose life she saved, approaches with obvious emotion. "Miss Dorothy, you didn't just save my life that night. You reminded us what we're fighting for. This isn't just business, it's personal. Neighbor testimonials start flowing. Malik steps forward. Miss Dorothy bought my school lunches when Mom was sick. Mrs. Patterson. She fixed my porch steps and wouldn't take a dime. The store owner. She helps translate for customers who don't speak English. This is exactly why we chose you, James says. You've already been doing this job. Now you'll get paid for it. Dorothy's moment of clarity comes like sunrise. Mr. Phoenix, if this means I can help more people the way y'all helped me, then yes, I'll do it. 100 bikers cheer. Neighbors cry happy tears. Children dance in the street. Dorothy's small act of kindness has transformed into a community celebration that will change hundreds of lives. 6 months later, Dorothy's neighborhood was unrecognizable. The abandoned lot where kids used to play in broken glass now houses a gleaming community center. Solar panels catch the morning sun. Wide glass doors welcome families streaming in for programs. The sign reads, Dorothy Washington Community Impact Center in gold letters. Dorothy herself is transformed. Gone are the worn janitor's uniforms and duct-taped coats. She wears professional business attire, her head held high as she greets community members by name. Her reliable Honda has been upgraded to a Phoenix Industries van equipped to transport seniors to medical appointments. The numbers tell an incredible story. 47 local residents now have full-time jobs. Construction workers who built the center stayed on as maintenance staff. Former unemployment recipients now run the after-school programs. Mrs. Rodriguez, who used to struggle with English, manages the translation services department. 156 children are enrolled in after-school programs. Malik graduated high school with honors and starts college next fall on a Phoenix Industries scholarship. His mother, formerly stressed about his future, now coordinates the youth mentorship program. 89 seniors receive regular health screenings at the medical clinic. Mrs. Patterson discovered her diabetes early thanks to free blood sugar testing. Frank Morrison, the biker whose life Dorothy saved, volunteers twice a week checking blood pressure for elderly residents. 23 families have moved from shelters to stable housing through the Housing Assistance Program. Dorothy personally helped each family navigate the paperwork, using skills she learned during her 6-week training. Media coverage has been overwhelming. The local news station did a 3-part series, Community Transformation Inspired by Act of Kindness. Channel 8's morning show featured Dorothy explaining how one can of soup changed hundreds of lives. The regional newspaper ran a front-page story, how one woman's compassion sparked million-dollar investment. The article included before and after photos that went viral on social media. National Veteran Magazine published a cover story, Phoenix Industries' most successful community partnership. Dorothy appeared on the cover alongside James Phoenix, both smiling in front of the community center. Dorothy's daily routine reflects her transformation. 7 a.m., arriving at the center in professional clothes, greeting staff members who used to be neighbors struggling to find work. Morning meetings with program coordinators discussing expansion plans. Dorothy leads these meetings with confidence she never knew she possessed. Lunch meetings with city officials and other community leaders. The mayor now asks Dorothy's opinion on citywide programs. Her success model is being studied for replication. Afternoon. Direct interaction with community members. Dorothy still knows everyone's name, still asks about their families, still gives out hugs freely. Evening. Planning sessions for new initiatives. The center now operates from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., serving over 400 families. Community testimonials pour in daily. Malik, now in college. Miss Dorothy's tutoring program didn't just help me get scholarships. It showed me I was worth investing in. Mrs. Patterson. The senior health clinic caught my diabetes before it got dangerous. Miss Dorothy saved my life just like she saved those bikers. Local mother Maria Santos. The job training program got me off welfare and into a career I love. My children see me working with purpose now. James Washington, a former drug dealer. Miss Dorothy gave me a construction job and a second chance. I've been clean for 6 months and got my kids back. The ripple effects extend far beyond the neighborhood. Phoenix Industries has opened 4 additional community centers in other cities, each following Dorothy's model of relationship-driven development. Dorothy travels monthly to consult with other communities seeking similar transformation. Her speaking fees go directly back into local programs. Harvard Business School created a case study called Dorothy's Way: Relationship-Driven Community Development. Students study her approach in graduate courses. Congressional hearings on community-based intervention programs feature Dorothy's testimony about what works versus what doesn't. The motorcycle club's continued involvement has deepened. Their annual charity ride now specifically benefits Dorothy's programs, raising over $5 million last year. Individual bikers maintain personal relationships with community members. Tank, Dr. Williams, married a local teacher who volunteers at the medical clinic. Pops, fully recovered from his heart episode, moved to Cleveland to be closer to the center. He runs a motorcycle safety program for teenagers. James Phoenix bought a house 3 blocks away. Dorothy reminds me why I do this work, he explains. Unexpected developments continue emerging. Dorothy's granddaughter changed her major from business to social work, inspired by her grandmother's example. 3 major corporations launched similar community partnerships after studying Dorothy's success. Property values are rising, but affordable housing remains protected through Dorothy's advocacy and legal expertise she gained in training. The emergency fund jar that once held $23.47 has been replaced by a community emergency fund worth $50,000. Dorothy's personal savings account grows monthly for the first time in decades. Awards and recognition accumulate. Presidential Volunteer Service Award, State Recognition for Community Development, Phoenix Industries, Humanitarian of the Year, Community College Honorary Degree. But Dorothy's favorite recognition comes from neighborhood children who still call her Grammy Dot and stop by for homework help, knowing she'll always have time for them. Sometimes I wake up thinking I'm still dreaming, Dorothy reflects. But then I see families having hope again, and I know the Lord had a plan all along. 1 year later, on the anniversary of that stormy night, the tradition began. October 15th, another severe weather warning, another evening of dark clouds and threatening skies. But this time, Dorothy isn't watching from a struggling household. She's coordinating emergency response from the community center. "All right, everyone," Dorothy announces to her staff. "The weather service says we might get severe storms tonight. Let's open the center as an emergency shelter." As rain begins to fall, Dorothy notices familiar headlights in the community center parking lot. Not just any headlights, motorcycle headlights. A smile spreads across her face. James Phoenix and his crew arrive, but they're not seeking shelter this time. They're checking on their investment, their friend, their inspiration. "Y'all come in here before you get soaked," Dorothy calls out, using the exact same words from that night a year ago. Same warmth, same welcoming spirit. But now she's greeting them into a space they helped create. What Dorothy doesn't know is that this has become an annual pilgrimage for the motorcycle club. Every October 15th, they return to remember the night that changed everything. This year, they've brought guests, community leaders from the 4 other cities where Phoenix Industries has started programs. Young veterans learning about community service. Dorothy's granddaughter, now a social work student doing her internship at the center. Local government officials document the program's success for replication in other states. Despite her transformed circumstances, Dorothy still insists on personally serving coffee and snacks to everyone. Her heart hasn't changed, only her capacity to help others. Frank Morrison, now 72 and healthy, approaches with obvious emotion. "Miss Dorothy, you didn't just save my life that night. You gave me purpose. I volunteer here twice a week now, and it's the best part of my week." "And you still won't take payment for it," Dorothy laughs, referencing their ongoing joke. The next generation has joined the tradition. Local children who benefited from Dorothy's programs now volunteer to help serve the visiting bikers. Malik is home from college, helping coordinate the anniversary event. "You know what I learned that night?" James reflects, sitting in the same chair where Frank recovered a year ago. "That real success isn't measured by how much money you make. It's measured by how many lives you touch." Dorothy pours his coffee, still using mismatched mugs because she likes them. "Mr. Phoenix, I learned something too. The Lord gives us storms not to tear us down, but to show us who we really are when the winds get rough." As the anniversary evening winds down, Dorothy mentions a new family that just moved into the neighborhood. Single mother with 3 children, struggling to find work, proud but in need of community support. "Point us in their direction," James says immediately. The tradition continues. Dorothy's approach to helping others hasn't changed. She still notices who needs help. still opens doors without asking questions, still shares what she has with whoever needs it. But now she has an army of resources behind her. Every act of kindness has the potential to transform lives. The final image. Dorothy standing in the doorway of the community center, watching the bikers ride safely into the night, knowing they'll return when needed, knowing the community is stronger, knowing that kindness is still the most powerful force in the world. Above the doorway, a plaque reads, "Kindness lives here. It always has." Dorothy's final message echoes from her office at the community center. Folks always ask me, "Dorothy, how did you know those men were worth helping?" Truth is, I didn't, but I knew I was worth being the kind of person who helps when help is needed. She pauses, looking at the photo on her desk. 8 bikers and 1 grandmother, all smiling on opening day. We all got storms in our lives. We all got folks on our porches looking for shelter. The question isn't whether they deserve our kindness. The question is whether we deserve to be people who give it. Your act of kindness might not bring 100 motorcycles to your door, but it might bring hope to someone who desperately needs it. And sometimes that's worth more than all the money in the world. If Dorothy's story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to believe in the power of kindness. Hit that like button if you believe small acts can create big changes. Subscribe for more stories that prove goodness still wins. Thieves like you make me sick. Officer Derek Kane grabs Madison Gray at Westfield Mall's jewelry counter. She's 17, clutching a $20 bill. Weekend shoppers stop to watch. "I didn't steal this." "Save your lies." He rips the bill from her hand, kicks her backpack across the floor. Worn notebooks scatter. "No parents, no ID. You're coming with me." "My mom works at Fort Bragg. I can call her Fort Bragg." Kane turns to the crowd with a cruel smile. "This kid wants me to believe her mama's military. What's next? She gonna fly in wearing combat boots?" The crowd murmurs. Some laugh. Madison's cheeks burn. Her hand finds her phone in her pocket. One text sent without looking. Then she goes still. That message just sealed his fate. The crowd parts as Kane drags Madison through the mall toward the exit. Her sneakers squeak against polished floors. Behind them, someone's phone is still recording. This isn't the first time Derek Kane has made assumptions about a kid. It's habit now, built from 8 years behind a badge in a town where most families look the same, act the same, drive the same cars. Madison doesn't fit the pattern, and that's enough. He studies her as they walk. The backpack with its frayed straps. Jeans with a patch on one knee. Not the fashionable kind, but the kind that says someone sewed it there to extend the life of the pants. No smartphone case, just a bare screen with a crack in the corner. Her hair needs a trim. Her jacket is 2 sizes too big, probably a hand-me-down. Kane's mental file builds itself. Single-parent household. Mom works double shifts somewhere, probably retail or food service. Kid gets unsupervised time, makes bad choices. Classic pattern. He's seen it 100 times. What he doesn't see is the discipline in how she walks, even now. The way she keeps her breathing controlled despite being scared. The muscle memory of someone who's been taught to stay calm under pressure. "Officer Yates," Kane calls into his radio. "I'm bringing in a juvenile. Suspected theft. Meet me at the cruiser." Madison's voice is quiet but steady. "I told you the truth. My mom is Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Gray. She's at Fort Bragg. If you just let me call her—" "Lieutenant Colonel?" Kane shakes his head. "Kid, I don't know what movies you've been watching, but this isn't helping your case." He opens the back door of his patrol car. "Get in." She climbs in without fighting. The door slams shut. Through the window, Kane sees her lips moving. She's counting something. 1, 2, 3, 4, over and over. He mistakes it for panic. It's not. 20 miles away at Fort Bragg's Special Operations Command building, a Pentagon priority alert appears on 3 different screens simultaneously. The message is brief. Dependent in distress. Civilian PD custody. Immediate response required. A colonel in desert tan combat uniform reads it twice. Then she's moving. Kane has 15 minutes before his world ends. The Greystone Police Department smells like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. Madison sits on a plastic chair in the lobby, her confiscated phone somewhere behind the front desk, her ripped birthday card pieces tucked carefully in her jacket pocket. Officer Timothy Yates shifts his weight behind the counter, eyes flicking between his computer screen and the 17-year-old girl who hasn't moved in 20 minutes. He's 26, 3 years on the force, and something about this whole situation makes his stomach tight. Kane, meanwhile, has settled into his desk chair with a sandwich from the deli next door. His feet rest on an open drawer. He scrolls through his phone, occasionally glancing at Madison like she's a piece of furniture he'll deal with eventually. Madison's bladder is getting uncomfortable. She counts to 30, then stands and approaches the desk. "Excuse me, can I use the bathroom?" Kane doesn't look up. "In a minute." She waits. 5 minutes pass, then 10. She tries again, her voice smaller this time. "Please, I really need to—" "Sit down," Kane says around a mouthful of turkey club. "You're not going anywhere until your parent or guardian shows up. If they show up." "But I told you, my mom is at Fort Bragg, being a super soldier." "Yeah, I heard you the first 12 times. He finally looks at her, his expression somewhere between bored and annoyed. "Here's a life lesson, kid. The faster you tell the truth, the faster this goes. Where'd you really get that $20? "I saved it from my allowance. 10 weeks, $2 a week." Kane snorts. "Allowance? From your special forces mom who's too busy to pick you up." Yates clears his throat. "Derek, maybe we should just..." "Should just what, Tim? Let her walk." Kane leans back in his chair. "She had cash she couldn't explain, no adult supervision, and she lied to my face. We follow protocol." "This isn't protocol," Yates mutters, but not loud enough to push it. Madison returns to her chair. Her hands rest in her lap, fingers laced together to stop them from shaking. She closes her eyes and counts like her mother taught her. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 6, repeat. Mom taught her this technique during a thunderstorm 3 years ago when Madison couldn't sleep. "Fear is just a feeling," her mother had said, sitting on the edge of the bed in her PT gear after a pre-dawn run. "You control your breath, you control the feeling. Count with me." Madison counts now. 1 breath, 2, 3. Outside, a black Ford F-250 pulls into the parking lot. The diesel engine cuts. A woman steps out wearing desert tan fatigues, boots hitting asphalt with purpose. Her name tape reads Gray. The station door opens and Kane's smirk dies instantly. Kane pulls an incident report form from his desk drawer with deliberate slowness. He uncaps a pen, clicks it twice, then looks at Madison with the expression of a man who has all the time in the world. "So, Madison, tell me about this Special Forces mom. What's her rank? Her unit? Or should we skip to the part where you admit you made it all up?" Madison's voice doesn't waver. "Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Gray, 3rd Special Forces Group, Fort Bragg." Kane writes nothing. He just stares at her, then glances at Yates with a grin. Yates looks away. "Lieutenant Colonel, Green Beret." Kane leans forward. "You know what happens to kids who lie to police? It goes on a record, a permanent record. When you apply to colleges, they see that. They throw your application in the trash." Madison's fingers dig into her thighs. She's 17. He's an adult with a badge. She doesn't know enough to call him a liar. "Let's start with basics. Home address." She recites it. "Your mother's full name?" "Catherine Ann Gray." "And your father?" Madison's voice gets quieter. "He passed away when I was 5. Kandahar." Something flickers across Yates's face. Kane doesn't miss a beat. "Ah." He nods slowly, false sympathy dripping from his voice. "So Mom's really busy, huh? Gone all the time. That why you make up stories, sweetheart? Need attention?" Madison's jaw clenches. She stares at a spot on the wall behind his head and says nothing. "Tim," Kane says loudly, "write this down. Attention-seeking behavior likely due to parental absence and unresolved grief." Yates's hands hover over his keyboard. "Derek, she's just a kid. She's a kid who lied to a police officer and wasted city resources." Kane taps his pen against the form. "It's sad, really. Mom's probably working 2 jobs, kid's raising herself, makes up fantasies to feel special." Madison's face burns. Not from embarrassment, but from the effort of not crying. She will not give him that. She counts breaths behind clenched teeth. 4 in, hold, 6 out. The station AC unit rattles and dies. The air goes still and stuffy. Sweat beads at Madison's hairline. Behind Kane's desk, a faded poster shows an eagle in 3 words: integrity, service, respect. Kane checks his watch. 4:45. He's been holding her for nearly an hour. No calls, no one showing up. His confidence grows with every passing minute. "Last chance, Madison. Where'd you really get that $20? I told you. I saved your allowance from your imaginary military mom. He closes the folder with a snap. If no one shows up in 15 minutes, I'm calling Child Protective Services. Maybe they can find you a home where someone actually pays attention. Madison's breath catches. CPS, foster care, being taken away. Her hands shake. She presses them together, keeps counting, keeps breathing. The front door opens. Yates glances up. His face drains of color. Derek. Combat boots echo on linoleum, and Kane's world stops. 30 minutes earlier, Madison's thumb had hovered over her phone screen in the back of Kane's patrol car. Not her mom's cell number, not the main baseline. The emergency contact her mother made her memorize 2 years ago. The one she said to use only if something was truly wrong. The text was simple. Detained by police. Westfield Mall. Officer hostile. Need you. She hit send and watched the message disappear into whatever system her mother had set up for emergencies like this. What Madison doesn't know is that her text didn't just go to a phone. It triggered an alert in the Joint Operations Command Priority Channel, a system designed for dependents of high-clearance military personnel in crisis situations. The kind of crisis that means kidnapping, assault, or imminent danger. At Fort Bragg, 15 miles from the mall, a Pentagon duty officer sees the alert flash red across his screen. He reads it once, twice, then immediately forwards it to Colonel Catherine Gray's Tactical Operations Coordinator. Gray is in a windowless briefing room with 3 NATO advisors discussing classified equipment transfers and training protocols. Her phone, set to silent for everything except priority alerts, vibrates once against the table. She glances down, reads the message. Her face goes absolutely still. The NATO colonel mid-sentence notices. Is everything? Excuse me. Gray stands, her voice level but final. Family emergency, we'll reschedule. She's out the door before anyone can respond, already dialing her aide. I need a vehicle and my Class A's now, 5 minutes. Her aide knows better than to ask questions. Yes, ma'am. Gray's hands don't shake as she strips out of her training fatigues and pulls on her dress uniform. The one with all the ribbons and tabs and proof of exactly who she is. Her movements are efficient, automatic, but her mind is a razor. Someone put their hands on her daughter. Someone detained her, scared her enough that she used the emergency protocol. Someone looked at Madison and decided she was lying, decided she was worth humiliating, decided she didn't matter. Gray's jaw sets as she slides behind the wheel of the F-250. She doesn't speed because military discipline runs deeper than emotion, but her knuckles are white against the steering wheel. They think I'm a lie, she thinks. They'll learn I'm a guarantee. Back at the station, Madison sits in that plastic chair, Kane's threats about CPS still ringing in her ears. She makes a decision in the quiet of her own head. She will not cry. She will not beg. She will not give him the satisfaction of breaking her. Mom taught her control. Control your breath, control your fear, control what you can control. Madison breathes. 4 counts in, hold, 6 counts out. Her hands rest steady in her lap now. She meets Kane's eyes when he looks at her, doesn't flinch when he smirks. Kane mistakes her silence for defeat. It's not. It's patience. The front door opens. Boot heels strike linoleum in a rhythm that sounds like a countdown. Yates looks up and freezes. His face goes from confusion to recognition to something close to horror. Colonel Gray walks in, and the air itself changes pressure. Colonel Catherine Gray steps through the door in full battle dress uniform, desert tan fatigues, boots polished to a mirror shine, rank insignia sharp on her chest. The Ranger tab, the airborne wings, the bronze star catching fluorescent light. The station goes silent. Even the phones seem to stop ringing. Gray's eyes find Madison first. A quick visual assessment. Posture, face, hands, looking for injury, for signs of trauma. Madison sits up straighter, meets her mother's gaze, gives the smallest nod. I'm okay. Only then does Gray turn to Kane. Her voice is quiet, controlled, colder than any shout could ever be. Officer, explain why my daughter was detained. Kane's smirk wavers but holds. He stands, trying to reclaim his authority through height. Ma'am, your daughter was found with unexplained cash at a mall jewelry counter. We brought her here for her safety while we investigated possible theft. Theft. Gray's tone doesn't change. What evidence of theft did you observe? She had $20 and couldn't adequately explain? She's 17. How much explanation does a 17-year-old need to give an adult before you believe her? Gray steps closer. Not aggressive, just deliberate. What store reported merchandise missing? Kane hesitates. No store specifically reported, so no theft occurred. The situation was suspicious. Suspicious how? Be specific. Kane's mouth opens and closes. He pivots. She was also trespassing earlier. Lincoln Park Trail. There are private property signs posted. The trail has been public access for 6 years. City Ordinance 443B. Would you like me to pull up the municipal code right now, or would you prefer to keep lying? The word lying lands like a slap. Yates's eyes go wide. Kane's face reddens. Ma'am, with all respect, rank doesn't matter here. This is civilian jurisdiction. You're absolutely right, Gray says. Rank doesn't matter. Accuracy does. She reaches into her pocket and places her military ID on the counter. You told my daughter she was lying about who I am. Was she? Yates picks up the CAC card with shaking hands. He reads the rank, reads it again. Derek, he whispers. She's a lieutenant colonel. Kane glances at the card, then back at Gray, his confidence cracking at the edges. Look, there may have been a misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding. You made an assumption. Gray's smile is razor thin. I'd like to see the incident report. Now! Kane's hands tremble as he reaches for the folder. Kane fumbles with the folder on his desk. His hands aren't quite steady as he pulls out the form and slides it across to Gray. She picks it up, reads it in silence. Her jaw tightens as her eyes scan the words. Attention-seeking behavior, fabrication suspected, parental absence, unresolved grief. Gray sets the paper down with deliberate care. Officer Kane, before you wrote this assessment of my daughter's psychological state, did you confirm my identity? The situation seemed to indicate yes or no. Kane's throat works. No. Did you deny my daughter access to a bathroom while she was in your custody? Madison nods slightly. Gray's eyes flash something dangerous. Kane shifts his weight. She didn't ask. I asked twice, Madison says quietly. Her voice is steady now, stronger with her mother standing 3 feet away. Yates speaks up from behind his desk, his voice tight. Derek, she did ask. I heard her. Kane shoots him a look that could melt steel. Tim, answer the question, Gray says. Did you deny my 17-year-old daughter access to a bathroom? I told her to wait. For how long? Kane doesn't answer. Gray continues. You detained a minor without parental notification. You denied her basic needs. You accused her of a crime you couldn't substantiate. You then wrote a psychological evaluation despite having no credentials or evidence. She pauses. Is your body camera footage available? The color drains from Kane's face. There was a technical malfunction. A malfunction. Gray's tone could freeze water. How convenient. She pulls out her phone and holds it up. Mine didn't malfunction. Kane stares at the phone. You can't. North Carolina is a one-party consent state, officer. I can record any conversation I'm part of. I've been recording since I walked through that door. She tilts her head slightly. Would you like to change any of your previous statements? Yates has gone pale. He's staring at his keyboard like it might offer him an escape route. Kane tries to salvage something. Ma'am, look, I think this is being blown way out of proportion. It was a simple misunderstanding. A misunderstanding is when you mispronounce someone's name. Gray says, this is harassment of a minor. This is abuse of authority. This is falsification of a report. Each sentence lands like a hammer. And this is just the beginning. Should officers face federal review for abusing authority? Comment justice if you think so. Gray's phone buzzes in her hand. She glances at the screen. Her expression doesn't change, but something shifts in her posture. She answers and taps the speaker button. Colonel Gray, a voice says, crisp and professional. This is Major Williams from General Markham's office. We received your dependent distress alert. Do you need MP backup? The room goes dead silent. Kane realizes federal jurisdiction just entered his station. Gray keeps her eyes on Kane as she responds to the phone. Not yet, Major, but I need this call timestamp documented. I may require federal oversight of this department. Logged and standing by, Colonel. We have your location. MP unit is 15 minutes out if needed. Understood. I'll update within the hour. She ends the call. The silence that follows is suffocating. Kane's face has gone from red to ash gray. Federal oversight? Look, Colonel, I apologize if there was any miscommunication here. Let's just get your daughter home and we can... We're not done. Gray cuts him off. I want your supervisor. Now. Yates stands up slowly from his desk. I'll get Sergeant Ortiz. Sit down, Tim, Kane snaps. No! Yates's voice shakes but holds firm. I told you an hour ago to just call her mom. I told you this was wrong. Kane's eyes narrow. You need to shut your mouth. Officer Yates, Gray says, her tone still level. What's your full name? Timothy Yates, ma'am. Did you attempt to intervene when Officer Kane detained my daughter? Yates swallows hard. I suggested we contact you immediately. He refused. But you didn't stop him. Yates looks down at his hands. No, ma'am, I didn't. That's complicity, Officer Yates. Remember that. The door to the back offices swings open. Sergeant Linda Ortiz walks out, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, her uniform crisp. She takes one look at the scene, Gray in full BDUs, Kane sweating, Yates pale, a 17-year-old girl in a plastic chair, and her expression hardens. Someone want to tell me what's happening in my station? Gray hands her the incident report. Your officer detained my daughter on false pretenses, denied her basic dignity, and falsified this report. I'm filing a formal complaint. Ortiz scans the document. Her jaw tightens with each line. When she finishes, she looks at Kane with something close to disgust. My office. Right now. Sarge, it was just a misunderstanding. Now, Kane. Gray turns to Madison. Get your things. We're leaving. She looks back at Ortiz. Expect a call from JAG by morning. Judge Advocate General, she clarifies, though Ortiz clearly knows what it means. Madison stands, collects her backpack from behind the desk. Kane's confiscated phone is returned without a word. As they walk toward the door, Gray pauses and glances back. Sergeant Ortiz, one more thing. You might want to check how many other complaints Officer Kane has had dismissed internally. I have a feeling this isn't his first time. 3 days later, Greystone PD receives a certified DOD letter. Equipment suspension pending investigation. Gray's home office is quiet except for the hum of her laptop. It's late evening, nearly 10 o'clock. Madison is asleep upstairs, finally calm after the hot shower and the grilled cheese sandwich her mother insisted on before allowing any conversation about what happened. Now alone, Gray allows herself to work. Her screen displays a database most police chiefs have never seen, the Department of Defense Law Enforcement Support Program. The page header reads, DOD Liaison Officer, Police Equipment Transfer Oversight. Below that, in smaller text, Authorized Personnel Only, TS, SCI clearance required. Gray's signature appears on dozens of documents scrolling past, equipment authorizations, training compliance audits, federal grant approvals. For the past 4 years, she's been the person who decides which police departments receive surplus military gear and whether they're qualified to use it responsibly. Greystone PD received $460,000 in equipment last year alone. Night vision goggles, 2 tactical vehicles, level IV body armor for the entire department, advanced communication systems, breaching tools. All of it contingent on maintaining an 80% training completion rate and adhering to constitutional policing practices. Gray pulls up their current compliance file. The numbers make her jaw tighten. Training completion rate 62%, 18 points below the required threshold. Excessive force complaints filed in the last 24 months, 18. Body camera malfunction rate, 34%. The national average is 6. She clicks deeper, finds the names behind the complaints. Derek Kane appears on 3 separate reports. All 3 were investigated internally. All 3 were dismissed with no disciplinary action. The pattern isn't hidden. It's just ignored. Gray opens a new window and begins typing. Her fingers fly across the keyboard, building a report that will land on desks in Washington by dawn. She includes case numbers, dates, federal grant agreement violations, and a detailed timeline of what happened to Madison. When she finishes, she saves the file and picks up her phone. First call. Captain Brooks, JAG Corps. Brooks answers on the second ring. Colonel Gray, Colonel. Burning the midnight oil? Brooks, I need a full audit of Greystone Police Department's federal contracts and equipment grants. Priority Alpha. I want every training log, every use of force report, every dollar they've received in the last 5 years. There's a pause. Kate, if you're personally involved in this, it could complicate. They put their hands on my daughter. They humiliated her in public. They lied on official reports. I want the audit, and I want it initiated by tomorrow morning. Brooks exhales. Understood. I'll have it on the secretary's desk by 0800. Thank you. Second call. Gray scrolls to a contact labeled simply Diane Personal. Senator Diane Fisher answers immediately. Kate, it's late. Is everything okay? No. Madison was detained by local police today, falsely. I need your committee to investigate police militarization abuse in Greystone. I'm sending you a full file. Fisher's voice goes cold. They touched Madison? They grabbed her in a mall, accused her of theft with no evidence, held her for over an hour, and mocked her when she told them to call me. I want hearings, Diane. I want this department under a microscope. Send me everything. If they abused federal resources and hurt that little girl, I'll personally drag their chief in front of armed services. They won't have a badge left when I'm done. Third call. Gray finds Matt Chen in her contacts, DOJ Civil Rights Division. They worked together on a case in 2023 involving a sheriff's department in Georgia. Kate Gray, Matt says warmly. Been a while. What's going on? I've got a pattern and practice case gift-wrapped for you. Excessive force complaints ignored, body cam tampering, federal grant violations, civil rights abuse of a minor. Want it? Always, email me the complaint. We'll open an investigation Monday morning. Gray ends the call and sets the phone down. 3 separate investigations now in motion. DOD equipment audit, Senate committee inquiry, Department of Justice civil rights probe. She closes her laptop and sits back in the darkness. 20 miles away, Derek Kane sits on his couch with his 3rd beer of the night. His phone lights up with messages in the department group chat. He's been telling the story for the last hour, making it funnier with each retelling. Military mom actually showed up in camo lol. Bet she drives a Prius with an army sticker. Did you salute her, bro? Kane grins and types back, she can wear whatever costume she wants. Doesn't change jurisdiction. His phone buzzes. Text from Sergeant Ortiz. Need to see you tomorrow. Don't come in until I call. He frowns at the message, but shrugs it off. Probably just procedural. Woman probably filed a complaint. Ortiz will smooth it over like always. 3 days later, a certified letter is delivered to Greystone Police Department at 9 in the morning. Chief Harold Briggs signs for it personally, opens it in his office, and reads the letterhead, Department of Defense, Office of the Inspector General. He reads the first sentence 3 times. Equipment transfer authorization suspended pending investigation into training compliance failures and credible civil rights violations. His hand shakes as he picks up his phone. $500,000 in federal gear frozen with 1 letter. Chief Harold Briggs stands behind his desk, holding the DOD letter like it might explode. His office is crowded. Sergeant Ortiz sits in one chair. City Attorney Ellen Morse in another. Derek Kane stands near the door, his arms crossed defensively, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Briggs reads aloud, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. Failure to maintain required training standards. Credible complaint of constitutional rights violation by officer under DOD oversight. Equipment transfer authorization suspended, effective immediately pending full departmental audit. He sets the letter down and looks at each person in turn. When his eyes land on Kane, they're cold enough to freeze blood. Someone explained to me how we went from a routine mall stop to losing $500,000 in federal equipment. Morse flips through her notes. The complainant is Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Gray, U.S. Army Special Operations Command. She's also the DOD liaison officer who oversees police equipment transfers for this entire region. She looks up. Which means she's the person who approved our gear in the first place. Jesus Christ, Briggs mutters. It gets worse, Morse continues. Senator Fisher's office called this morning. The Armed Services Committee is opening an inquiry into police militarization abuse. They specifically named Greystone as a case study. Briggs closes his eyes. What else? Department of Justice Civil Rights Division opened a pattern and practice investigation yesterday. They're looking at every excessive force complaint we've had in the last 5 years. The room goes silent. Kane shifts his weight, his face pale. Briggs finally speaks. Officer Kane, tell me exactly what happened. No spin, just facts. Kane clears his throat. Chief, I observed a juvenile with unexplained cash at a mall jewelry counter. I detained her for questioning. She claimed her mother was military, which seemed unlikely given the circumstances. I brought her to the station to verify. Did you confirm her story before detaining her? Briggs asks. The situation required immediate. Yes or no, Derek? No, sir. Did you turn off your body camera? Kane hesitates. There was a technical malfunction. I asked if you turned it off. Another pause. Yes, sir. Briggs's fist comes down on the desk hard enough to make everyone jump. You detained a 17-year-old girl, the daughter of a Pentagon liaison officer, without cause. You denied her access to a parent. You turned off your camera to hide it. And then you wrote a psychological evaluation despite having 0 qualifications. His voice rises with each sentence. Do you have any idea what you've done to this department? Kane's jaw works. Chief, I was doing my job. Your job is to serve and protect, not to humiliate children because they don't fit your assumptions. Briggs turns to Morse. What are we looking at legally? 3 separate federal investigations. Potential loss of all DoD grants, which fund about 40% of our equipment budget. Civil lawsuit from Colonel Gray is likely, and depending on what DOJ finds, we could be placed under a consent decree. Consent decree, Briggs repeats slowly. Federal oversight, for years. Potentially 5 to 10 years, yes. Ortiz speaks up. Chief, there's more. I pulled Kane's file. 3 prior complaints, all dismissed internally without proper investigation. Briggs looks like he might be sick. Get out of my office, Kane. You're on administrative leave as of now. Full pay, but you don't set foot in this building until IA completes their investigation. Chief, out. By day 2, the story breaks. Local news runs it first. Military mother exposes police department, federal investigation launched. The segment shows stock footage of Fort Bragg, the Greystone PD building, and a carefully worded summary that avoids naming Madison but makes the power dynamic crystal clear. By day 3, it's gone regional. Lieutenant Colonel triggers DOD audit after daughter detained. Someone leaked Kane's incident report. The redacted version appears on social media by day 4, and the internet does what the internet does. Twitter explodes. #Greystone PD trends nationally. #BelieveKids becomes a rallying cry. Threads dissecting every detail of the case accumulate thousands of retweets. Reddit's R Justice Served thread hits 80,000 upvotes within 24 hours. The top comment, imagine mocking a kid for saying her mom's special forces and then watching a lieutenant colonel walk through the door in full uniform. Chef's kiss. TikTok picks it up next. Madison's story, told without showing her face, gets 4 million views in 3 days. The audio clip of "Your mama's in the military, she gonna fly in wearing combat boots" becomes a meme for instant karma moments. Gray declines every interview request. Her public affairs officer releases a single statement. Colonel Gray has full confidence in the ongoing federal investigations and will not be commenting further at this time. But the silence only feeds the story. Derek Kane's life becomes a fishbowl. Administrative leave means he's home all day, watching his name get torn apart online. His union representative tells him the harsh truth over coffee at a Denny's far from Greystone. Derek, I'll defend you because that's my job. But if they prove you intentionally turned off your body cam, there's nothing I can do. That's tampering with evidence. Kane stares into his coffee. It was just supposed to be a simple stop. Well, it's not simple anymore. His phone buzzes constantly with messages from other officers. Most are supportive publicly, but he notices who's stopped responding in the group chat, who's putting distance between themselves and the fallout. His wife asks him one night after the kids are in bed, "Why didn't you just let her call her mother?" He doesn't have an answer. The Internal Affairs interview. The IA interview happens in a neutral room at City Hall, not the police station. Madison sits between her mother and a victim's advocate provided by the State Attorney General's office. The investigator, a woman named Sarah Torres, has kind eyes but asks direct questions. "Madison, did Officer Kane threaten you?" Madison thinks carefully. "He didn't hit me or anything, but he said I'd have a record, that colleges would see it. I'm 17. I didn't know if that was true or not." The advocate leans forward. "That's coercion of a minor. Textbook intimidation." Torres makes a note. "Did he deny you access to a bathroom?" "Yes, I asked twice. He said in a minute, but then never let me go." "How long were you there?" "Over an hour, I think." Gray's hand rests on Madison's shoulder, steady and grounding. Torres's expression doesn't change, but her pen moves faster. "Thank you, Madison. You're very brave." Later that day, Torres interviews Timothy Yates separately. He sits alone, no union rep, no partner, just him and the truth he's been avoiding. "Officer Yates, did Officer Kane turn off his body camera deliberately?" Yates stares at his hands for a long moment. Then, yes. Can you be specific? He said, no one needs to see this. Then he switched it off before we entered the mall. Did you object? I said we should just call her mom and let her go. He told me to mind my own business. But you didn't stop him. Yates looks up, his face drawn. No, ma'am, I didn't, and I should have. Torres closes her notebook. That's all for now, Officer Yates. 2 weeks later, the IA report lands on Chief Briggs's desk. 6 sustained findings. False detention without probable cause. Denial of access to guardian. Coercion of a minor. Falsification of official report. Evidence tampering via body cam deactivation. Conduct unbecoming an officer. The recommendation is termination. The city's settlement offer. Ellen Morse approaches Gray privately, requesting a meeting at a coffee shop equidistant from the base in City Hall. They sit in a corner booth, 2 cups of coffee growing cold between them. Colonel Gray, I'll be direct. The city is prepared to offer a settlement, $150,000 mutual non-disclosure agreement, and Officer Kane's resignation with pension intact. Gray's expression doesn't change. No. Morse blinks. I'm sorry. No. I don't want your money. Colonel, I understand you're angry, but this is a generous... I don't want generous, I want accountability. Gray leans forward. Kane doesn't resign. He gets fired. Terminated for cause. No pension, no reference, no chance of being rehired in law enforcement anywhere. I'm not finished. I want the entire department audited. Training reformed to meet federal standards. Body camera policy rewritten to eliminate malfunctions. And I want a public apology to my daughter, delivered by Chief Briggs personally. Morse sets down her pen. That's not how these settlements typically work. I'm not typical. Gray's smile is thin and sharp. And if you don't agree, I'll see you in federal court, with cameras, with press, with every advocacy group that's already contacted me offering support. We'll litigate this publicly for years, and every single dirty detail of your department's failures will be entered into public record. Morse studies her for a long moment. Let me take this to the city council. You do that. 2 weeks later, Derek Kane receives a certified letter at his home. His hands shake as he tears it open. Notice of termination for cause, effective immediately. Pension forfeiture, no rehire eligibility. He reads it 3 times. The final line burns into his vision. Sustained findings of evidence tampering, false detention, and conduct unbecoming preclude any future employment in law enforcement capacity. His wife watches from the kitchen doorway. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't have to. The council votes 6-0. Kane is done. The city council chambers are packed. Reporters line the back wall. Activists wearing Believe Kids shirts fill the front rows. Derek Kane sits beside his union attorney, Roger Whitman, looking 10 years older in an ill-fitting suit. Chief Briggs reads from the podium. Officer Derek Kane has served 8 years. Internal Affairs sustained the following findings: false detention of a minor without probable cause, denial of access to guardian, coercion of a minor, falsification of an official report, evidence tampering via body camera deactivation, and conduct unbecoming an officer. The department recommends termination for cause with pension forfeiture. Whitman stands. Council members, while Officer Kane exercised poor judgment, termination is excessive. This is his first serious disciplinary action in 8 years. We request suspension, retraining, and probation. Council member Patricia Hughes leans forward. First offense? The IA report shows 3 prior complaints dismissed internally without independent oversight. That's protecting your own, not justice. The gallery murmurs agreement. Council member Robert Mills adds, Officer Kane said no one needs to see this before turning off his camera. That's premeditation. That's consciousness of guilt. Whitman tries again. My client has a family, a mortgage, 2 children. Taking his pension destroys their livelihood. Hughes's voice sharpens. Madison Gray is 17. She'll remember being grabbed, humiliated, and called a liar by authority forever. Where's the consideration for her? Scattered applause breaks out. Kane is given a chance to speak. He stands, voice cracking. I made a mistake. I'm sorry for what happened to Madison. I want to make this right. But his eyes say something else. I'm sorry I got caught. Everyone sees it. The council votes 6-0. Termination upheld. Pension forfeited. Timothy Yates faces his hearing 3 days later. Smaller crowd, less media, his punishment, 6-month suspension without pay, mandatory training, 2 years probation. One more complaint and he's permanently terminated. After, he finds Gray outside. "Ma'am, I should have stopped him. I knew it was wrong. I'm truly sorry." Gray studies him. "Yes, Officer Yates. It is on you. Don't let it happen again." "I won't, ma'am." He walks away alone. 1 month later, Derek Kane sits in a cramped apartment 30 miles from Greystone scrolling job sites. He had to sell his house. Security firms rejected. They Google his name. Private investigation rejected. Retail management rejected. His wife filed for separation. "I can't watch you destroy yourself and take us with you." His kids live with her now. Supervised visits every other weekend. They look at him like a stranger. He opens Facebook. Someone tagged him. The comments are brutal. "Hope this guy never works again. That 17-year-old had more integrity. Power-tripping coward got what he deserved." He closes the laptop, sits in silence. His neighbor's TV bleeds through thin walls. He thinks about Madison, about laughing when she said her mother was Special Forces, the certainty he felt that she was lying. He was so sure. "I thought I was teaching her respect, but I didn't respect her enough to check if she was telling the truth." He doesn't find redemption, doesn't apologize properly, doesn't volunteer or make amends. He just sits there, alone, unemployed, broke, forgotten. His phone buzzes. Another rejection email. He doesn't open it. Some people learn from their mistakes. Some people just lose everything and never understand why. Derek Kane lost everything, and somewhere deep down in a place he won't let himself examine, he still thinks it wasn't his fault. One man falls, but the system that protected him faces judgment. 6 months after Madison's detention, the Department of Defense releases its findings on Greystone Police Department. The report is damning. Equipment revoked, $300,000 in night vision devices and tactical vehicles pulled immediately. The department has 30 days to return everything or face federal prosecution. New nationwide stipulations. Any department with training compliance below 80% loses access to DoD equipment. No exceptions. Colonel Gray testifies before the Senate Armed Services Committee in full dress uniform. "Local police officers are not soldiers," she says calmly. "They serve different functions under different legal frameworks. If they want military tools, they must demonstrate military-level discipline and accountability. Anything less betrays public trust." Senator Fisher introduces an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act within 2 weeks. It becomes known as the Gray Clause. The amendment mandates annual independent audits of every police department receiving DoD equipment. It requires public reporting of training compliance, use of force incidents, and complaint resolution. Departments failing audits for 2 consecutive years are permanently banned. It passes with bipartisan support, 68 to 32 in the Senate. The Department of Justice completes its investigation 8 months later. Their findings confirm systemic failures in training, accountability, and constitutional policing. Greystone PD is placed under federal consent decree for 5 years. Independent monitor assigned with authority to review every use of force incident. Body camera use mandatory. Footage auto-uploaded to secure cloud storage. No manual shutoffs. No malfunctions. Bias training every 6 months by outside experts. Community Oversight Board established with veto power over use of force policies. Chief Briggs retires 2 weeks after the decree is signed. The city hires Angela Mercer from Oregon, known for reform work. Her first act, require every officer to recertify in constitutional policing. 12 officers resign rather than comply. The department is better for it. Madison's case becomes legal precedent within a year, cited in 12 other lawsuits for false assumption-based detentions. A nonprofit forms, the Believe the Kid Coalition. They provide free legal advice to minors during police encounters and distribute Know Your Rights materials in schools. Gray's story appears in Military Times, the colonel who held the line, "At home." It goes viral across bases worldwide. Army Recruiting produces a new video featuring service members with their children. The tagline, "When you serve, we serve too, and we protect our own." Applications from military spouses for law enforcement oversight positions increase 40%. The story becomes larger than one girl, one officer, one department. It becomes a symbol of what accountability looks like when pursued with precision and determination. Change is slow. Systems resist. But Madison Gray's name is now attached to that change, a reminder that even a 17-year-old's truth can move mountains when someone with power believes her. For Madison and her mother, life must return to normal, forever changed. 1 year later. Saturday morning sunlight filters through the kitchen windows of the Gray house. Madison sits at the table eating cereal, now 13 years old, scrolling through her laptop with the casual confidence of someone who survived something difficult and came out stronger. Gray sips coffee at the counter, reviewing routine military reports. Life has returned to its normal rhythm. Deployments, briefings, training schedules. The urgent crisis has faded into memory, leaving only the lessons behind. "Mom," Madison says without looking up, "there's a National Youth Leadership Conference next month. Applications are due in 2 weeks. You applying? Yeah, the essay question is, describe a moment that taught you resilience." Gray smiles into her coffee. "Sounds like you've got material." Madison grins back. "Maybe a little. The weight of that day at the mall still exists, but it's lighter now. It doesn't crush her. It's just part of her story, the chapter where she learned that truth is worth defending even when no one believes you. She learned something else, too, that her mother would move heaven and earth to protect her, that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's counting your breaths and waiting for the right moment. An unexpected letter. The mail arrives mid-morning. Gray sorts through the usual stack of bills and advertisements until she finds an official envelope. Greystone Police Department letterhead, new chief's name in the return address. She opens it carefully. Inside is a handwritten note on department stationery. "Colonel Gray, I've read every file related to what happened to Madison. What your daughter experienced was inexcusable, and I cannot undo it. But I can commit to ensuring it never happens again to any child in this community. Under the new Oversight Board, we've implemented the Verify Before Assume protocol. Officers must now confirm claims and contact guardians before taking any detention action involving minors. The protocol requires documented proof of reasonable suspicion, not assumption. Informally, around the station, officers call it the Gray Rule. I hope that's acceptable to you and Madison. We're not perfect yet, we're still learning, but we're trying to be better than we were. Respectfully, Chief Angela Mercer." Gray reads it twice, then shows it to Madison. Madison reads in silence, then looks up. "Cool, but I hope nobody else has to go through what I did for them to figure out basic decency." "That's the point of change, kid," Gray says quietly. "We push hard so the next person doesn't have to, so the system bends before it breaks someone else." Madison nods slowly. "Do you think it'll actually stick? Or will they forget once everyone stops paying attention?" "That's why we stay vigilant. Change requires maintenance. The moment we stop watching, old habits creep back in." Evening finds them on the front porch, the golden hour light painting everything warm and soft. A neighbor kid rides past on a bike, carefree and unaware, no police in sight to question his right to exist in public space. Madison watches the kid disappear around the corner. "Do you think Officer Kane ever really understood what he did wrong?" Gray considers the question carefully. "Maybe not. Some people are more invested in being right than in being better. But here's what matters. The system understood. One bad cop is a problem we can solve by firing him. A system that protects bad cops? That's a crisis. That's what we had to fix. So did we fix it? We started the fix. Real change is generational, Madison. It takes decades of consistent pressure. We pushed one domino, others have to keep pushing." They sit in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the sky shift from gold to pink to purple. Gray breaks the quiet. "You stood up when it mattered most, even when I wasn't there yet. Even when you were scared and alone and no one believed you. I'm proud of you." Madison leans into her mother's shoulder. "Learned it from watching you, Mom." Gray wraps an arm around her daughter and holds on tight. Some victories are loud and dramatic. Others are quiet moments on a porch, a child safe and whole, a system slightly more just than it was before. This is both. Madison Gray's story isn't unique, it's not even rare. Across this country, thousands of children face authority figures who refuse to listen, not because the kids are lying, but because adults have already decided what's true based on appearance, assumptions, and prejudice. Most of those children don't have a mother with Pentagon connections. Most don't have access to federal investigations or Senate hearings. Most suffer their humiliations in silence, learning early that the system doesn't protect people like them. But every now and then, someone picks the wrong target. Every now and then, the truth walks through the door wearing combat boots and carrying the kind of power that can't be dismissed or ignored. Madison's case became a catalyst because her mother had resources most people don't. But the principle applies universally. Children deserve to be believed until proven otherwise, not suspected until proven innocent. Every bully's downfall starts the same way. One person refuses to back down. One person says no more and means it. One person has the courage to make noise until someone with power finally listens. Want to see more stories where bullies face real consequences? Subscribe and hit the notification bell. The next story drops in 48 hours, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. If this story reminded you that accountability still matters, that justice can prevail when good people refuse to stay silent, then share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Tag someone who's been underestimated and proved everyone wrong. And remember, the badge doesn't grant righteousness. The uniform doesn't guarantee integrity. Real power comes from standing firm in your truth and refusing to let anyone make you small.
This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of what happens when truth meets visibility. At Beat Stories, we believe exposure is the first step to transformation. Subscribe and stay tuned, because the next story might be yours.